At the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, the conventional wisdom was that if you got COVID, you might get sick, even really sick, worse than anything you've ever known, but that if you could beat COVID, the worst would be behind you. Now, of course, we know otherwise. Across the country, thousands of Americans are still experiencing the impact of coronavirus. They are a group known as the long haulers, and we are joined now by one of these survivors here in Southern California. Shelby Hedgecock joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. I appreciate it.
Now, I want to let folks know, correct me if I'm wrong here on any of this, you have been, up until COVID, pretty healthy person, no underlying conditions. You're even part-time a physical fitness trainer, so you're someone who cares about nutrition, exercise, things of that nature. And then you get sick. You're not sure how or where exactly you picked this up. You were being cautious. But take me back to the date. This is, I believe, late April. When did you first start to think, I might have this?
Yeah, so the day was April 16th, and I started having weird GI issues, horrible headaches. And I just thought that it was just a normal headache, right? Like I thought I was like, maybe I'm just having a migraine or something. Well, then a couple days had passed, and my boyfriend woke up with a fever. And so I FaceTime my mom, my whole family's in East Tennessee, and they were like, "You should probably go get tested." And so we went through LA County, got tested, and the results came back 3 days later as we both tested positive.
And what was your thought at the time based on, and again, this was still relatively early on in this pandemic. So, my recollection back then, the conventional wisdom that we thought at that point was maybe you'd be sick somewhere around 2 weeks. Was that your thought? Like, oh, this is really miserable, but 2 weeks I'll be done?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. I never thought that it would impact me like this at all. I thought that I was just gonna, maybe go through a bad bout, perhaps. I mean, I was open to that, but I did not think that I would still be suffering, 21 weeks later.
21 weeks. That's a lot of time. So Shelby, take me back to, let's say you're around 2 weeks into this. I'm curious, as much as you can, describe what it feels like. Did it ever feel like, oh, okay, I'm not in this terrible part like it was at the beginning, but I'm still not feeling well? Was it gradual, day by day, that you felt better? Are you still feeling as miserable as you did back then? Like, break that down for us.
Well, it's different now than it was then. But back then, I mean, I had the GI issues, the vomiting, the diarrhea, the headaches, and I just progressively got worse. I mean, a couple of weeks in, the shortness of breath settled in. I had the whole elephant on my chest, as I'm sure you've heard about. And there were nights whenever my O2 saturation would drop to about 87 at night, and I would have a racing pulse. And it was really hard on my body. I can't describe it to anyone unless you've been there, but I literally was waking up gasping for air at night. It was terrifying. And I thought that I was getting better at one point at the beginning of May, and then I just took a turn for the worse. And it just goes to show you, I mean, this thing, it's a roll of the dice of how it's going to affect you, and you don't know how long it's going to affect you, so you should be prepared to be sick for a long time.
And I want to talk about, because as I understand it, you mentioned your oxygen levels dipping, and of course that's one of the telltale signs that the body could really be in peril with this thing. And as I understand it, there were a number of cases where those levels would drop low, and then you'd get to the hospital, and then things would be a little bit different. Tell me about what was going on there.
So I went to the ER on 3 different occasions, 3 different hospitals, and I was turned away pretty much every single time because I was young and healthy. They saw me and they were like, "Oh, this girl's fit, she's healthy," and they weren't really listening to me whenever I was saying, "Hey, like, I know my O2 stats are okay whenever I'm awake and alert, but whenever I sleep at night, I literally cannot breathe." And I mean, I I did not look good either. So I just think that it was a mixture of a lot of uncertainty going on at the time. They just didn't know. I mean, Alex, at one point I was actually turned away, and the doctor had told the nurse to tell me not to come back because I was at risk for infecting people.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. So talk to me a little bit about, because there's a lot of physical and physiological things going on, but can you tell me, Shelby, a bit about what the psychological impact of that has been like for you?
Yes, the psychological impact has been a roller coaster. I'm thankful to be a strong-minded person, and I'm very strong-willed, and so on. But it's been tough. Being turned away like that and not knowing what's going on with your body, but knowing something is terribly, terribly wrong. Uh, it's devastating. And now I have scarring on my lungs, chest, and spleen. I should have definitely been given supplemental O2 during those times, and I just wasn't. So we need more compassion, that's for sure.
So I want to ask you at what point, because I feel like this term long haulers, like it's kind of in the vernacular now. We're starting to hear more and more about it. But obviously at the beginning, you got COVID early on. So I'm sure there wasn't necessarily the same kind of awareness around it when you started thinking like, okay, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however many weeks. When did the kind of light bulb moment, if it was in fact a light bulb moment for you, when did you hear that maybe there were other people out there like you who were having symptoms that were persisting for a long time?
I honestly just started sharing my story. I've always been very, very transparent in that, just inspiring and empowering others, to get through their trials in their life. And so I've always been one to do that. So I just thought, maybe I should start sharing my story on all of this. And slowly but surely, I started having people reach out and be like, hey, like, you're not alone. Join this group. And once I started joining these support groups, I realized my experience is not unique. I realized there's a lot of people not getting better, and they're actually saying, I mean, it's an estimated 1 in 3 are suffering long term complications from this. So I hate that we're all going through it, but the support aspect, you got to have it for sure.
And I heard you in an interview. I just found this fascinating that there are all sorts of different groups. It's often like with mommy groups or people who are into horses or whatever it might be. There's oftentimes like a multitude of groups online, right, that all fall underneath that umbrella. And my understanding is there's long hauler groups for people who've been with this for like 30 days and then 60 days and then 90 days. Is that right? Like, tell me about these communities. Tell me what this long hauler world looks like.
100%. So there are a couple of different groups. I mean, one of my favorites is Survivor Corps. We actually just surpassed 100,000 members. So with that, there's a mixture of, people that have just been diagnosed with COVID, people in the hospital, but a lot of them are long haulers, and we're doing a lot of research for the medical community because right now we're paving the way. The answers lie within our bodies, so we have to be working with the medical professionals. And so Survivor Corps is great. There's also long haul COVID fighters, and as you were saying, there's a 30-day and then there's an 80+ day, I believe. So I've graduated to that group.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's really great to have that sense of community, but more than that, just to be on the side of science, getting through these things so we can get answers, because every test, every conversation, every survey we take, every piece of research that we participate in, it counts for something. God forbid for even yourself or whoever comes down the line who does get infected, hopefully we'll have answers, so it's important that we all come together on that the groups are just great.
And if you don't mind talking a little bit more about those long-term complications, you're now about 5 months into this, and can you tell me a little bit more about the range of things that you're experiencing that you think, because I think that would be really hard too, right? Like as we're talking to you, there's been awful fires, the air is really bad, and a lot of people have been getting headaches from that. So can you talk about like the things that don't feel right with you and what you think might be because of COVID?
Well, I know that this is from COVID, and I've been suffering from neurological issues, cognitive issues. The fatigue I experience on a daily basis is absolutely debilitating. Um, as of at the beginning of August, I actually had to go and uh, I had a heart monitor put on me. I was sitting here at the computer doing work, and my heart rate skyrocketed to about 145 beats per minute. And I'm a turtle, I can't overexert myself, or else there are horrible consequences. And so I went back to the ER at the beginning of August, and mind you, this is 16 weeks after diagnosis. And they saw my heart rate was pretty high upon arrival. They did some blood work, sent me home with a heart monitor for 14 days. And actually, as of last weekend, I got the results back from that, and the heart monitor came back abnormal. So there were multiple instances where my heart rate was 189 beats per minute, and it would stay that way for minutes. So you have to keep in mind, I mean, I would do burpees and interval sprints up a mountain at 189 beats per minute. Like my heart shouldn't be beating that fast. And then also my inflammatory markers are high, as well as my platelet count. And my PCP is just really concerned at this point. So I'm actually getting in with a cardiologist next week, stat. And I did not think that I would have to be worrying about a heart attack at 29 years old. So it's that's just the thing with being a long hauler. You live your life not knowing what's next.
Shelby, anybody who does burpees voluntarily, and if you don't know what burpees are, folks, go and Google it. Like, they're not fun, but I do them voluntarily too. And I know what that means for me is that exercise is tough, but I love it and I couldn't live without it. And I can only imagine what it's like for you to not be able to exert yourself. I'm sure that is really, really tough. And I am really, really sorry. As you look ahead to the future, what does a potential normal look like for you? Like, is there a goal of, I just want to get back to the point where I can do fill in the blank for me? And do you think you're going to get there anytime soon?
I honestly, I mean, I do have faith in our recovery. There are people that are getting better. It's just taking a very long time. But also, we have to monitor our bodies. Exercise, I miss it so much. But I'm just, above anything else, I'm grateful to be here. So
I am very grateful that you were able to join us. COVID long hauler, Shelby Hedgecock, thank you so much. And I'm rooting for you.
thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it.